Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, my dear students. We are discussing caste and class. Today we shall exclusively deal with the caste. Yesterday I discussed or we discussed the definition of the caste definition and made some definitions there. Today we shall discuss briefly characteristics of caste. First, caste is innate. It means it is hereditary because if a person is born in a certain caste, he will remain there for the life in the same caste. He cannot change his status, he cannot change his class, he cannot change his position. The caste system is rigid and immobile. So if a person is born in a certain caste, and that very caste will determine his status in his life. So I have written first, caste is innate. Its first distinguishing feature is its absolute rigidity and immobility. जो ये कास्ट है ये बहुत रिजिड और इमोबाइल होती है. इसका ये मतलब होता है कि अगर कोई इंसान किसी कास्ट में, मिसाल के तौर पर कल हमने पढ़ा कि 4 बड़ी जो कास्ट्स इन इंडिया हैं वो है फर्स्ट ब्राह्मणस, क्षत्रियाज, वैश्याज एंड शूद्राज, एंड देयर आफ्टर दे हैव बीन डिवाइडेड सर्टेन इनटू thousands of castes. For example, if a person has been born in Brahmin family, he will enjoy the full status, full rights throughout his life. On the other hand, if a person is born in an untouchable society, in family, or the Shudra family or the Harijan family, he will face some disabilities on every social aspect, on every religious aspect, on every front. He will face some social disabilities throughout his life. If he will try his best to change his status in his life, he can't do so. So the caste is rigid and immobile. I have written caste is innate. Its first distinguishing feature is its absolute rigidity and immobility. A man dies in the same caste. So I have forgotten to write the term caste. A man dies in the same caste in which he is born, and it is the caste that determines his status in life. अगर कोई इंसान किसी खास कास्ट की फैमिली में पैदा हुआ है, वो मरेगा भी वही कास्ट लेके. सो कास्ट है हायरार्किकल डिवीजन ऑफ सोसाइटी. हमें पता है कि कास्ट से क्या हुई है इंडियन सोसाइटी में, सोशल स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन, यानी डिफरेंट layers, different divisions have been formed. Hindu society is divided into several divisions. फॉर एग्जाम्पल मैंने वो नहीं लिखे हैं कि डिविजन्स क्या हैं. पहले ब्राह्मणस हैं, फिर क्षत्रियाज है, फिर वैश्याज हैं, फिर शूद्रास है, फिर अनटचेबल्स, फिर सिटल लोअर कास्ट्स हैं, और ये सब कास्ट्स दे हैव बीन डिवाइडेड सिटल इनटू फर्दर thousands of castes. So we can say that the Indian society is hierarchical in nature. Caste has this divided Indian society into different divisions. So there has been hierarchical division of society. Certain castes are enjoying full rights. They are considered as superior. They are considered as pure. They are considered they have been enjoying full rights and privileges. On the other hand, some castes are facing every possible handicap, every possible disability in his life. He faces religious these handicaps, religious problems. He faces social problems. He will face these ceremonial problems. He will face every sort of problem. So Hindu society is divided into several divisions. The Brahmins are placed at the top and regarded as pure and superior. The Shudras have occupied the end of the hierarchy, who are considered as impure and inferior. Restrictions on food habits. जो ये कास्ट है इससे पाबंदी लगती है किस फूड हैबिट्स पे भी, फूड चॉइस पे भी, क्योंकि इसमें ये है कि जो है there has been prescription of certain kinds of food for different kinds. I can see the caste system has imposed certain restrictions on the food habits of the members. They differ from caste to caste. Who should accept what kind of food and from whom is often decided by the caste. For example, in northern India, a Brahmin would accept pakka food only from some castes lower than his own, but he would accept kacha food at the hands of no other caste except his own. And the Brahmins have always been non-vegetarian, whereas the others can be vegetarian, and the others can be non-vegetarian, etc. So there has been food restrictions on certain castes. Caste, C-A-S-T-E, it has been displayed here. Caste is endogamous, means जो ये हर कोई कास्ट अपनी ही कास्ट में शादी करेगा, वो उससे बाहर शादी नहीं कर सकता. So caste is endogamous. Endogamy is the most important element of the caste system. What is endogamy? It is the rule of the marriage in which a member of certain caste has to marry in his own caste rather than the outside of the caste. So restrictions on occupational choice. Each caste has its own specific occupations. Occupations are almost hereditary, means in the caste traditions there is a gradation of occupations also. Some occupations are considered to be superior and sacred, while certain others are considered as degrading and inferior. So each caste has its own specific occupation. For example, Brahmanas can pursue those jobs, those professions which are considered as good. For example, he can take the profession of learning, teaching, priesthood. This doctor, he can become a doctor, he can become a teacher, he can become an intellectual, rather than something else. But certain castes like Shudras or untouchables, there is being all the menial things for them. For example, a Shudra can do weaving, show making, yath chamar te chwana, chwana gobrio boot sumrawan wol, dohon wol. ये काम सिर्फ किसके लिए है? शूद्रा के लिए. Weaving, shoe making, oil grinding, sweeping, scavenging, high tanning, washing clothes, pottery, etc. These things are meant only for the lower castes. Okay. Restrictions on marriage. Certain rituals are meant only for certain higher castes rather than for the lower castes. Lower castes faces all the problems. So as I already mentioned about that, a restriction on marriage is that the caste system is endogamous, that each one has to marry in his own caste. Restrictions on social relations. The caste system puts restrictions on the range of social relations also. The touch of a lower caste man would pollute a man of higher caste. Even his shadow is considered enough to pollute a higher caste man. यहाँ पे ये पता चलता है कि प्योरिटी एंड इम्प्योरिटी का मसला है कि अगर लोअर कास्ट का ये किसी भी तरह टच किया उसने कि हायर कास्ट के, उसको बहुत मुश्किलों का सामना करना पड़ सकता है. या अगर उसकी शैडो भी, जो उसका साया भी है, जो लोअर कास्ट मैन है, उसका साया भी पड़ा किसके ऊपर, यानी ब्राह्मण या ऐसी जात के ऊपर, तो he has to face some problems. So there has been religious problem. A lower caste man cannot go to that temple where Brahmins are this worshipping. So he cannot go to the well where Brahmins are drawing the water. He cannot go to the public place where, or he cannot reside to that place where Brahmins are living. So he has to segregate their selves. He has to remain away from the higher castes. This was the characteristics of caste. Tomorrow we shall discuss class. Till then, Assalamu.